Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where we dive into the boundless realms of imagination. From thrilling tales of alien encounters to humanity's triumphs among the stars, we bring you stories that spark wonder and awe. Subscribe for weekly adventures into the unknown. When the Galactic Coalition sanctioned the bombing of humanity's outer colonies, they expected compliance or surrender. What they didn't expect was for humanity's sleeping giants' massive, planet-destroying warships nicknamed dragons to awaken, unleashing vengeance on an interstellar scale. The Galactic Coalition was an ancient alliance, uniting over 50 alien species under a single banner. For centuries they maintained a fragile balance of power, carefully orchestrating treaties and trade agreements to prevent war. But when humanity arrived on the galactic stage, that balance began to tremble. Humans were a young species, barely a few centuries into spacefaring, yet their expansion was rapid and relentless, fueled by boundless ambition and an almost reckless determination to survive and thrive. The Coalition observed humanity with growing unease. Unlike other species, humans didn't adhere to unspoken boundaries. They colonized worlds considered too hostile, mined resources others deemed untouchable, and settled in regions long regarded as neutral zones. For the Coalition, humanity's audacity bordered on arrogance. Multiple warnings were issued, and each one was ignored. Humanity didn't just grow, it thrived, expanding its reach into the stars without permission or restraint. The final straw came when human colonists established settlements on planets within the Tarsis neutral zone, a buffer region meant to separate Coalition territories from unclaimed space. This act was seen as a blatant violation of interstellar law, a challenge to the Coalition's authority. The Council convened an emergency session, debating how to respond. Some species, like the cautious Sirathi, urged diplomacy. Others, such as the warlike Drexar, demanded swift retaliation. In the end, a decision was made, a show of force. The Coalition's vast fleet would strike at humanity's outermost colonies, destroying key settlements to send an unmistakable message. It was believed this would force humanity to cease its reckless expansion and accept the Coalition's dominance. The operation was planned meticulously, targeting 5 major human colonies. The Coalition's admirals promised precision and minimal collateral damage, a clean demonstration of power. The attack began at dawn, local time. Coalition ships emerged from hyperspace above the targeted planets, their weapons charging with lethal precision. Plasma bombardments rained down, reducing entire cities to ashen moments. Millions of human lives were extinguished in a single day. Observers from the Coalition Council watched the operation from a safe distance, nodding with satisfaction as their fleets carried out the strike flawlessly. When the last colony fell silent, the Coalition declared victory. Their message had been sent. Humanity would now understand its place in the galaxy. But what the Coalition didn't realize was that their message had been received, just not in the way they intended. Unknown to the Coalition, humanity had prepared for this moment. Long before their first encounter with alien species, humans had envisioned a future where they might face annihilation. They had built weapons and defenses, hidden in the darkest corners of the galaxy, to ensure their survival. These weapons were not meant for conquest, they were designed for retribution, to awaken only in humanity's darkest hour. Deep within the cold void of space, ancient machines began to stir. Massive starships, forgotten by all but a select few, detected the destruction of the colonies and activated. They were the dragons of Earth's long-forgotten past, and their purpose was clear: defend humanity at all costs. The Coalition had not subdued humanity. They had unleashed its fury. Humanity's greatest strength was not just its resilience or its ingenuity, it was its ability to prepare for the worst. Long before humanity ventured beyond the confines of its solar system, before it even met its first alien species, it feared extinction. Nuclear wars, rogue AI, asteroid impacts, these were threats humans had imagined for centuries. As humanity advanced, so too did its paranoia. This fear bred innovation, and from it came the dragons. The dragons were humanity's ultimate insurance policy, massive, autonomous warships built in an era when Earth teetered on the edge of self-destruction. Designed to operate independently, these starships were far more than mere weapons. Each dragon housed an artificial intelligence so advanced it could strategize, adapt, and learn faster than any human mind. Their arsenals included technologies far ahead of anything used in regular human fleets, plasma lances capable of tearing through planetary crusts, gravitational disruptors that could collapse moons, and drone swarms with near-perfect precision. But these warships were not built for conquest. They were built to ensure humanity's survival in the face of annihilation. Hidden in asteroid belts, buried beneath frozen moons, and concealed in deep space voids, the dragons slumbered, their systems running on the faintest trickle of energy, waiting for a signal. Humanity hoped they would never need to be awakened. That hope ended when the Coalition bombed humanity's colonies. The dragons' AI systems detected the catastrophic loss of life, their sensors interpreting the destruction as a threat of extinction. Ancient protocols, buried in encrypted code, were activated. Across the galaxy, the sleeping giant stirred. In the asteroid belt of a forgotten star system, the first dragon, Leviathan, powered up. Its hull, dark and jagged like a mountain of onyx, absorbed the faint starlight as it came to life. Plasma conduits illuminated its surface in eerie, pulsing patterns, and its AI ran diagnostics on systems that had been dormant for centuries. Weapons charged, shields calibrated, and its drone fleet began to swarm in coordinated patterns. Similar awakenings occurred in other hidden locations. On the ice moon of an uninhabited gas giant, another dragon, Inferno, emerged from beneath its frozen tomb, melting its way to freedom. In the dark expanse between galaxies, Abyss, a dragon in the gravitational shadow of a rogue planet, activated its engines and began its journey toward humanity's enemies. The dragons didn't rely on human commands. Their programming was clear: respond to existential threats with overwhelming force. They began transmitting encoded messages to Earth, informing human leadership of their activation. But by the time the messages arrived, the dragons were already moving. The Coalition, still celebrating its victory over the human colonies, noticed the disturbances too late. Their long-range sensors picked up strange energy signatures, massive objects moving through space with impossible speed and precision. Patrol ships sent to investigate vanished without a trace. Energy spikes followed by eerie silence became the norm. The dragons did not announce their intentions. They struck without warning, dismantling Coalition scout ships with surgical precision. Coalition fleets that had been victorious days before now found themselves blind, isolated, unhunted. Humanity had unleashed its sleeping giants, and the galaxy would soon learn the cost of waking the dragons. The Coalition celebration of their victory over humanity was short-lived. News of the destroyed human colonies spread quickly among the member species, reinforcing the belief that the upstart humans had been put in their place. But as the days passed, something began to unsettle the Coalition's military leadership. Patrol ships along the borders of human-controlled space began to disappear without explanation. Communication with these vessels simply ceased, leaving only fragments of garbled transmissions, panicked voices, bursts of static, and then silence. Initially, the Coalition dismissed these incidents as isolated malfunctions or pilot error. But as more ships went missing, the pattern became undeniable. Each disappearance occurred in systems close to the former human colonies, as though an unseen predator was stalking the region. Coalition admirals scrambled to respond, sending out more ships to investigate. These reinforcements vanished just as mysteriously. Sensors picked up anomalies that defied explanation. Energy spikes appeared out of nowhere, lingering for mere seconds before fading into the void. Coalition engineers analyzed the data and found something alarming. The energy readings were unlike anything in the Coalition's arsenal. Whatever was behind the attacks was using technology far beyond their understanding. For the first time in centuries, fear began to creep into the Coalition's ranks. The idea that humanity might possess weapons capable of such precision and stealth was unthinkable. Humans were resourceful, yes, but their technology had always been inferior to that of the Coalition's oldest member species. Yet the evidence suggested otherwise. Unbeknownst to the Coalition, the dragons were already on the move. Unlike conventional warships, these colossal vessels operated with near-perfect efficiency. Their AI minds processed trillions of variables in milliseconds, coordinating strategies that combined overwhelming firepower with psychological warfare. They didn't merely destroy coalition ships, they erased them, leaving behind no debris, no survivors, no clues. The Dragon's actions were deliberate, calculated to instill fear and confusion. One such encounter occurred near the Crittenden Nebula, where a coalition destroyer squadron was patrolling. Long-range sensors detected an anomaly, a faint gravitational disturbance where no celestial body should have been. Moments later, the squadron's flagship reported a sudden energy surge. Before it could react, a beam of pure plasma sliced through its hull, splitting the massive vessel in two. The remaining ships attempted to scatter, but the Dragon, Inferno, was already upon them. Its drone swarm descended like a cloud of fireflies, each one targeting critical systems with unerring accuracy. Within minutes, the squadron was annihilated. Across multiple sectors, similar attacks unfolded. The Dragon struck without warning, disabling communications and wiping out fleets before they could mount a defense. Coalition ships that tried to retreat were pursued relentlessly, their hyperspace drives sabotaged by advanced interference technology. The psychological toll on the coalition was immense. Without knowing the nature or origin of their enemy, paranoia gripped their fleets. Admirals began issuing contradictory orders, pulling back ships from the front lines and abandoning key systems in a desperate attempt to regroup. The Dragons exploited this chaos. They planted false signals and decoy ships to lure coalition forces into traps. They struck at supply lines and command centers, crippling the coalition's ability to coordinate. Every move the coalition made seemed anticipated, every countermeasure rendered ineffective. The coalition leadership convened emergency sessions to discuss the growing crisis. Their analysts concluded that the attackers were likely human creations, but the scale and sophistication of the weapons were far beyond what any species believed humans capable of. Even the most advanced coalition races, like the Elthanari with their hyper-intelligent strategists, struggled to comprehend the precision and efficiency of the enemy. For humanity, the Dragon's assault was not just an act of vengeance but a demonstration. They didn't need to boast or broadcast their intentions, their actions spoke louder than words. Humanity had prepared for this moment, and now the galaxy was learning a harsh truth: humans were not prey. As the Dragons carved a path through coalition space, they left no survivors, no warnings, and no mercy. The coalition had made its first and greatest mistake. They had woken humanity's silent shadows. Alpha Centauri was a jewel of the Galactic Coalition, a hub of military power and commerce, guarded by the most advanced fleets in the galaxy. Strategically located near the border of human space, it became the natural gathering point for the coalition's forces as they prepared for a decisive counterattack. Hundreds of warships of varying sizes assembled in its orbit, their hulls gleaming under the light of twin suns. For the coalition leadership, this display of strength was meant to reassure their member species and intimidate any remaining human resistance. They underestimated what they were facing. The coalition's admirals believed that the mysterious enemy could be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. After all, no force had ever stood against the combined might of the coalition and survived. Their strategy was simple: consolidate their fleets, establish a strong defensive perimeter, and draw the enemy into a pitched battle. The coalition's most advanced ships, including the flagship Eternal Vow, were equipped with powerful shields and energy weapons that could cut through any known material. Their fleet of nearly 400 vessels included dreadnoughts, carriers, frigates, and swarms of automated attack drones. What they didn't account for was that the Dragons were already there, watching. The Dragon Leviathan had arrived days earlier, hidden in the gravitational shadow of a gas giant on the edge of the system. Its immense hull, over 10 kilometers long, absorbed all incoming scans, rendering it virtually invisible. As it lay in wait, its AI meticulously analyzed the coalition fleet, mapping its movements, identifying weaknesses, and predicting their battle formations. When Leviathan struck, it did so with precision and devastating efficiency. The attack began with a sudden and unexplained system-wide blackout. Coalition ships lost communications, sensors, and even internal systems as a wave of electromagnetic interference swept through their ranks. Moments later, a ripple in space heralded Leviathan's arrival. The massive warship emerged from hyperspace just outside the defensive perimeter, its dark hull shimmering with a faint, otherworldly glow as its energy conduits powered up. Before the Coalition could react, Leviathan unleashed its primary weapon, a particle lance that carved through space like a blade of molten light. Its first target was the Eternal Vow. The lance struck the flagship's shield, collapsing it in an instant before slicing through the ship's reinforced hull. The explosion was cataclysmic, scattering debris across the battlefield and throwing the Coalition fleet into disarray. As panic spread, Leviathan deployed its drone swarm. Thousands of autonomous units poured from its launch bays, moving with terrifying coordination. Each drone targeted specific points on Coalition ships, engines, weapon systems, and life support. Ships that tried to retreat found their hyperspace drives disabled by targeted strikes. Those that stayed to fight were torn apart piece by piece. Coalition admirals attempted to rally their forces, but Leviathan had already disrupted their command structure. The AI anticipated their every maneuver, using decoy signals and electronic warfare to sow confusion. Smaller dragons, Inferno and Abyss, joined the fray, emerging from hyperspace to flank the Coalition fleet. Together they created a three-pronged assault that left no avenue for escape. By the time the Coalition realized the full scope of their enemy's power, it was too late. In less than an hour, the once mighty fleet was reduced to wreckage. The orbit of Alpha Centauri became a graveyard of shattered hulls and drifting debris. The surviving Coalition ships fled in chaos, their crews haunted by the image of the Dragon's vast, unrelenting, and unstoppable. The destruction of the Alpha Centauri fleet was more than a military defeat. It was a psychological blow that shook the Coalition to its core. For centuries they had believed themselves invincible, the supreme power in the galaxy. Now they faced an enemy that defied their understanding of warfare, an enemy that struck with the precision of a predator and the ruthlessness of a storm. Alpha Centauri, once a symbol of Coalition strength, became a silent monument to their arrogance. The dragons didn't linger to gloat or occupy the system. They moved on, their mission clear and unyielding. The Coalition had awakened humanity's most fearsome guardians, and there would be no sanctuary, no safe harbor. The galaxy watched in horror as news of Alpha Centauri's fall spread. The Coalition had thought themselves the hunters. But now they understood the truth. They were the prey. And the dragons were just getting started. The destruction of the Coalition's fleet at Alpha Centauri sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Fear rippled through the member species, many of whom began questioning the wisdom of challenging humanity. The Coalition's facade of invincibility had crumbled, replaced by a grim realization they were not prepared for this war. The dragons were unlike any enemy the Coalition had faced before. These massive warships operated with surgical precision, obliterating entire fleets without sustaining so much as a scratch. Coalition strategists scrambled to identify weaknesses, but the dragons' attacks were too efficient, too unpredictable. Every attempt to analyze their tactics or reverse engineer their technology ended in failure. The dragons moved like ghosts unseen until it was too late. Faced with mounting losses, the Coalition resorted to desperate measures. They gathered their remaining fleets and fortified key systems, hoping to slow the dragons' advance. They deployed their most advanced technologies, gravity mines, stealth frigates, and planetary defense grids. Entire worlds were turned into fortresses, bristling with weaponry and shielded by layers of orbital defenses. But the dragons adapted. At the heart of their relentless efficiency lay their artificial intelligence, a fusion of human creativity and cold, calculating logic. Each dragon's AI processed trillions of data points in real time, learning from every encounter and refining its strategies. When the Coalition fortified a system, the dragons bypassed it, targeting supply lines and outposts instead. When they deployed gravity mines, the dragons sent decoy drones to trigger them, conserving their strength for the real fight. The dragons' attacks were not random, they were a masterclass in psychological warfare. They avoided civilian casualties, focusing solely on military targets. Yet this restraint only deepened the Coalition's fear. For every fleet destroyed, for every base annihilated, the message was clear. The dragons were not fighting for conquest, they were fighting for vengeance. The Coalition leadership, once so confident in their superiority, descended into chaos. The member species turned on one another, blaming each other for the escalating crisis. The Drexer, who had pushed for the initial attack on humanity, faced widespread condemnation. The Sarathi, who had warned against provoking humanity, withdrew their fleets entirely, unwilling to sacrifice more lives in what they now saw as a doomed effort. Amidst the chaos, whispers of surrender began to spread. Some factions argued that humanity should be approached diplomatically, that peace could still be achieved. But others, driven by pride and desperation, refused to yield. They insisted that humanity's retaliation was proof of their barbarism, a justification for the coalition's initial strike. As debates raged, the Dragons delivered another crushing blow. This time they targeted the coalition's central data archives, a sprawling facility hidden on the remote planet of Terethys Prime. The archives contained centuries of knowledge, military plans, trade records, cultural history. Protected by the coalition's most sophisticated security systems, it was believed to be impenetrable. Leviathan and Abyss proved otherwise. The Dragons launched a coordinated assault, disabling the planetary defenses in minutes. They deployed specialized drones that infiltrated the archives, uploading terabytes of data before destroying the facility. The coalition not only lost its strategic information, but also its sense of control. Humanity now knew the coalition's secrets, their weaknesses, their fears. As the Dragons withdrew, Terethys Prime burned. The coalition's remaining leaders watched helplessly as their power crumbled. They had misjudged humanity, seeing them as a reckless, inferior species. Now they faced the consequences of their arrogance. But the Dragons were not finished. Their attacks grew more calculated, more devastating. They didn't just dismantle the coalition's fleets, they unraveled its very foundation. Economies collapsed as trade routes were severed. Planets declared independence, unwilling to be caught in the crossfire. The once unified coalition began to fracture, its member species retreating to their own territories in search of safety. Yet there was no safety. The Dragons didn't rest, didn't negotiate, didn't hesitate. They moved with the precision of a predator and the inevitability of a storm. For every coalition ship that fled, for every planet that surrendered, the message was clear. Humanity would not be conquered, and its wrath would not be ignored. The galaxy, watching from the shadows, began to reconsider humanity. For all their flaws, humans had done what no species had ever dared. They had defied the greatest power in the galaxy and turned its might against itself. The coalition's war of dominance had backfired spectacularly, and the balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. The turning tide was not just a military defeat for the coalition, it was the beginning of a new era. The Dragons, once humanity's silent guardians, were now its avenging angels. The galaxy's old order was crumbling, and in its place, humanity's legacy was rising. The coalition was unraveling. What had once been the most powerful alliance in the galaxy, a sprawling empire of hundreds of member species, was now a fractured, desperate collection of territories scrambling for survival. The Dragons, humanity's vengeful guardians, had dismantled its fleets, disrupted its supply chains, and exposed the deep flaws within its leadership. No species within the coalition was spared the fallout. The Drexer, who had spearheaded the attack on humanity, found themselves ostracized. Their homeworld, Drexia Prime, became a target of internal rebellion as their citizens questioned the wisdom of provoking such a devastating enemy. Meanwhile, smaller, less militarized species like the Trinari and Yulan suffered as their planets were abandoned by retreating coalition forces. Without the promise of protection, entire colonies were left to fend for themselves. The coalition's High Council, once a symbol of unity, had become a stage for infighting and blame. Meetings devolved into shouting matches, with member species accusing one another of cowardice and incompetence. Some demanded an immediate surrender to humanity, hoping to salvage what little remained. Others, driven by pride or desperation, insisted on fighting to the bitter end. But none of it mattered. The Dragons were relentless, and every decision the coalition made seemed to play into their hands. Humanity had planned for this moment for centuries, and the Dragons executed that plan with chilling precision. They didn't just destroy fleets and bases, they dismantled the coalition's very infrastructure. In one particularly devastating move, Inferno and Leviathan launched a synchronized assault on the Coalition's central hyperspace relay network. These massive relay stations connected star systems across the galaxy, enabling trade, communication, and military coordination. Without them, the Coalition was blind, isolated, and unable to respond effectively. The attack was a masterstroke. Coalition fleets, already reeling from previous defeats, now found themselves stranded in distant star systems, unable to regroup or call for reinforcements. Planets that relied on regular shipments of food and medicine began to starve. Entire economies collapsed as trade routes vanished overnight. Even the Coalition's most advanced AI system struggled to adapt to the sudden loss of connectivity. As chaos spread, the Dragons continued their campaign of fear. They struck key planets with terrifying precision, disabling defenses and destroying military targets without harming civilian populations. On some worlds, they left behind eerie displays, rows of disabled Coalition warships, their hulls intact but their crews missing, as if to emphasize the futility of resistance. On others, they broadcast encrypted messages warning against further aggression. The psychological toll on the Coalition was immense. Soldiers deserted their posts, unwilling to face an enemy they couldn't even comprehend. Civilians fled to the edges of the galaxy, hoping to escape the Dragon's wrath. Even the Coalition's most fanatical leaders began to doubt their ability to recover. But what terrified the Coalition most was the realization that the Dragons were not acting alone. Humanity itself, though seemingly absent from the battlefield, was orchestrating the war from the shadows. Human agents infiltrated Coalition territories, spreading propaganda, hacking systems, and sowing discord. Old alliances crumbled as species turned on one another, convinced that betrayal was imminent. The galaxy began to change. Independent systems, long overshadowed by the Coalition's dominance, saw an opportunity to assert themselves. They declared neutrality or openly supported humanity, hoping to avoid the Dragon's wrath. Former allies of the Coalition broke away, forming new alliances and vowing to stay out of humanity's path. For the first time in millennia, the Coalition was no longer the uncontested ruler of the galaxy. Its fall had revealed the fragile foundation upon which its power was built: arrogance, complacency, and a refusal to adapt. Humanity, once dismissed as a minor power, had exposed these weaknesses for all to see. As the Dragons advanced deeper into Coalition space, the remaining leadership faced an impossible choice: continue fighting a war they could not win, or surrender and risk humanity's judgment. Neither option offered salvation, and every passing day brought more destruction. The Coalition's collapse was not just a military defeat, it was a reckoning. The galaxy watched as the mighty alliance crumbled, its former glory reduced to ruins. Humanity had risen from the ashes of its colonies, and the Dragons had ensured that its vengeance would be remembered for generations. But the war was far from over. The Dragons were still moving, their purpose unfulfilled. The Coalition had started this conflict, but humanity would decide how it ended. And as the galaxy braced for the final act, one truth became clear: the age of the Coalition was over, and a new era was dawning, one forged in fire and tempered by the will of humanity. The Coalition's final stronghold lay deep in the heart of its territory, a fortified system known as Veil Thoris. It was the last bastion of hope for the once mighty alliance, guarded by the remnants of its greatest fleets and bristling with the most advanced planetary defenses in the galaxy. Here, the Coalition's surviving leaders huddled in desperation, their war rooms filled with hurried discussions and futile plans. They knew the Dragons were coming. They knew this was the end. But no amount of preparation could have braced them for the storm that was about to descend. The assault began without ceremony. The first sign of the Dragons' arrival was a shift in the system's gravitational fields, detected by Veil Thoris deep space sensors. The reading spiked violently, indicating the sudden emergence of multiple massive objects. Moments later, the stars themselves seemed to dim as the Dragons appeared. Leviathan, Inferno, Abyss, and dozens of their smaller counterparts materialized in perfect formation, their immense forms blotting out the light of the system's twin suns. The defenders of Veil Thoris had no illusions about their chances. The Coalition's strongest fleets had been destroyed. These were the remnants' old ships, desperate crews and systems held together with salvage and hope. Still, they fought. Waves of coalition ships surged forward, launching torpedoes and energy blasts at the oncoming dragons. The planetary defense grid fired a wall of plasma and missiles, creating a dazzling display of destruction in the void. But the dragons were unyielding. They moved as one, their AIs coordinating every attack with flawless precision. Leviathan opened the assault with its particle lance, a beam of searing energy that carved through the coalition's front lines like a blade through water. The smaller dragons deployed their drone swarms, which weaved through the chaos with unnerving grace, targeting the weakest points in the coalition's defenses. Missiles detonated harmlessly against the dragon's shields, while countermeasures rendered the defenders' weapon systems useless. Within minutes, the coalition's fleet was in shambles. Ships drifted lifelessly, their hulls glowing from the heat of dragon plasma. The few vessels that managed to retreat toward the planetary defenses found no refuge. Inferno descended into the atmosphere, its crimson hull shimmering as it bypassed the orbital defenses with ease. It fired its primary weapon, a cascade of molten plasma that incinerated ground-based installations and left entire continents scorched. On the surface of Vale Thoris, panic spread like wildfire. Civilians fled in all directions, seeking shelter that did not exist. Coalition leaders, watching the destruction unfold, realized their empire was not just dying, it was being erased. But then, something unexpected happened. The dragons stopped. Hovering above the planet's largest city, their immense forms loomed silently. Their weapons went dark, their drones returned to their bays, and the chaos subsided. For the first time since the war began, there was no sound of destruction, just silence. And then came the signal. A single message, broadcast on every frequency, in every language spoken within the coalition. You sought to extinguish us, but humanity endures. The coalition is no more. You will never harm us again. The message was not delivered in anger, nor in gloating. It was calm, resolute, and final. The dragon's mission was complete. They had dismantled the coalition's power, broken its fleets, and shattered its unity. Humanity had been avenged. The dragons turned and left, vanishing into hyperspace as quickly as they had arrived. They left behind no occupation, no demands, no armies. Only the smoldering remnants of the coalition's pride and the lingering reminder of what they had awakened. The galaxy entered a new age. Independent systems, freed from the coalition's grip, began to rebuild. Former member species restructured their governments, some choosing to forge alliances with humanity, others retreating into isolation. The balance of power shifted irrevocably. Humanity, though still a fraction of the galaxy's population, was now a force to be reckoned with, a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and the consequences of underestimation. In the decades that followed, the dragons became legends. Stories of the massive AI warships spread far and wide, their names spoken with equal parts awe and fear. The message they had delivered to Vale Thoris echoed across generations: humans were not to be provoked. But humanity itself remained humble in its victory. The war had cost them dearly, and their focus turned inward toward rebuilding their colonies, healing their wounded, and ensuring their survival. The dragons returned to their slumber, hidden deep within the vastness of space, ready to awaken should humanity ever face such a threat again. The coalition had sought to destroy humanity, believing it weak and insignificant. Instead, they had unleashed a force they could neither comprehend nor control. The galaxy had been forever changed, not by conquest or diplomacy, but by the unyielding will of a species determined to survive. The dragons were not just weapons. They were humanity's promise to the stars that they would rise again, no matter the odds. And as the first human explorers ventured back into the galactic stage, the message of their triumph was clear. Humanity was here to stay. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more adventures into the unknown. Until next time, keep looking to the stars.